warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today I'm going to start with how social class, gender, ethnicity, and age identities may be changing due to the globalization, increased choice, and the creation of new hybrid identities. So before I get started, I need to tell you something. In my previous lecture, we talked a lot about the social identity and the factors which play a very important role in a social change. So today we are talking about those factors which are influencing these factors like social class, gender, ethnicity, and the age identities. Some sociologists, such as postmodernists, believe that the old certainties of identity are giving ways to new uncertainties. Identities until fairly recently were considered to be stable and fixed. For most people, important aspects of their identity were outside their control and decided by birth. For example, being born with a fixed gender identity into a particular social class in a society where gender and class are decisive influences on identity. Until very recently, identities were clear, relatively fixed, and certain in terms of what is expected by others. For example, people had a clear idea about what it means to be a man or a woman because there are relatively few choices available to them. In how these categories are defined are in how to live as someone belonging to one sex. The social rules governing how to be young or old, male or female, upper class or working class were clear, consistent, and firmly enforced. This has begun to change, at least for people in more highly developed societies. Reason for this includes globalization, a key social change in the development of global economic and cultural influences, which has opened up societies, communities, and individuals to new and different experiences, behaviors, and ideas. In the UK, for example, people eat food from the USA, India, and Thailand, wear clothes from China, and listen to music from Korea. They have imported a range of cultural ideas, styles, and fashion from around the globe. This culture trend has resulted in broken up, fragmented identities and increased the choices available. Secondly, increased choices. Many people now have much greater choices. On one level, this is simply about what they can buy. A far greater range of goods are available and often affordable. This has led to society being based on consumerism. This choice people make have consequences beyond simply satisfying needs or owning something. They have become a way of impressing on others who and what you are. One way of expressing cultural identities, therefore, is through a display of wealth that emphasizes an individual's social status and position. More generally, consumption linked to identity because it represents a background presentation of the self. What we buy, how we dress and wear, and how we spend our leisure time all reveal something about who and what we are. So, according to this paragraph, there are certain things we need to learn. The very first thing we need to understand is with the passage of time, things are entirely changed. Are still in some part of the world, they are in process to be changed. Couple of years before, would people have a clear identities? We have so many things which are fixed. With the passage of time, no things are entirely changing, are developing, and especially in the developed society, there are so many things which has already changed and in process to be modified with the passage of time. So the very first thing, you can say that the factor which can influence the change in identities is the globalization. So what is globalization? As we often use to say we live in a global village, when we talk about the global village, it's all about our impact as our world has changed with the invention of gadgets, internet, social networking sites, social networking applications. No, we are just a touch away to understand, just to want to buy something. So you're just a touch away. So with the globalization, so first of all, it's important to understand what is globalization. There are two things which are generally relating to globalization. A process in which we can simply have more variety. For instance, the example which is given in the paragraph is for instance, I live in Pakistan. The way I dress up, it's the culture I'm borrowing from USA. For instance, if I listen music, I have an interest in, for instance, UK. The gadget I use is from China. So while living in my country, I am using a lot of things which is not from Pakistan, which are not from Pakistan, my country. So the thing is, this is called globalization. And we talk about globalization, there are two general aspects of globalization: economic and cultural. The way I get up, the dress up, what we eat, the fast food normally, which is very, 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 we can say in these days, with especially in the youth. So the way I dress up, the food I take, the music I listen, the art and the culture, all the things, obviously it comes in the dimension or in the framework of in the framework of, you can say, the globalization. The second thing I want to use is, it's not about the culture, it's all about the economic factors. So when we talk about the economic factors, one can say that, it is one of the factor of globalization. I would like to buy so many things. Most of the things I like to buy through online. I can get the things from USA, I can get the things from China, Thailand, Korea, Hong Kong. So I have a choice to buy so many things. So basically, when we talk about globalization, it got two dimension: economic and cultural. This is one thing which is changing the trends, which is changing the identities. The second thing is the choice. So with the passage of time, we people have a lot of choices. As I mentioned earlier, I have a choice to buy. 50 years before, 40 years before, I have a very restrictive choice. I can buy a thing from India, for instance, from China, nothing else. So I am not dependent on anything. If I got money, I got cash, I can get whatever I want to. So the affordability, the choices is there with the best of time. So when we are able to get whatever we wanted in our range, we can simply, you can say, is on a rampant for a change, identity change. Last thing in relate to this paragraph is, obviously we buy a lot of things. When we talk about the global village, it's all about the consumerism. What is consumerism? No, it's an open field. It's not about a monopoly. You people want to buy something, you have a choice. You can buy from this. One thing. Second thing is that it's all about, no, when you can buy anything from anywhere at the same time, we got two dimension again. One, what we are buying is our need. Our second, whatever we are buying, it's not our need, it simply reflect our social position, our social culture, a social status, right? So with the invention of so many things and the globalization, the economic and culture factors, no, we are actually having a hybrid identity, which is a new phenomena to understand. In the globalized world, there are so many ways to express identities that is no longer possible to support, sustain, and control simple, centered social identities. As a result, the rules governing the correct way to play out these identities, real man don't cry, a man plays in his home, are relaxed as people develop to freedom to both invent and adapt identities to their personal taste and style. So in this paragraph, you can say that with the best of time, things are entirely changed. You people remember that last time I told you about the functionalist theory, I told you about the right man. So now we are not having the fixed dimensions. We don't have the fixed rules are the fixed responsibility. So now things are easy to adapt. In developed countries, we can see this. We can experience all these things quite oftenly. If you have a job, you're a male, have a job, just go outside. Eke out. You're a breadwinner, no problem at all. Typical patriarchal style. But now things are changed in developed country. If your spouse, your partner has a good job, she wants to deliver, she is more career oriented, just let her do what she wants to. Now it's your turn to feed your kids, it's your turn to change the nappies as well. So that a lot of things which are a couple of years before the part of the typical female task now change to men, because obviously you have a choice and now you have the adaptability. So when we people have a choice and adaptability at the same time, now we are ready to accept the hybrid identities. One outcome of this change is that identities become decentered. People are less certain about how to behave. If there are many ways to be middle class, which is the right way, identity, category are also more easily combined to create a whole new range of the hybrid identities. Some young British Asians, for example, define themselves as Brazilian, a mixed both British and Asian culture identities. This is a new identity not open to previous generation, but also a hybrid one because it combines aspect of at least two ethnic identities. The problem with almost unlimited choice from which we pick and mixed identity is uncertain and confusion about what we are and how we are supposed to behave. So, I mean, yes, with the arrival of new hybrid identities, there are things which are complex at the same time. They are actually, when we talk about anything in sociology, they got two versions. One is very, you can say you are very comfortable to accept, and obviously, certainly, there's a lot of people, a group of people who are not ready to accept because they simply consider if we blindly accept something, so we are far away from our culture, far away from our tradition. So the example which we have is the Braxton. Braxton is all about the British and the Asian mixture. So youth, and you know that it's a bit kind of, you can say, adventurism. It's a bit kind of you can say uh, a style, you can say that. So we are representing two different identities at the same time, but keep one thing in your mind. This thing is, to some extent, is very easy to adapt because you are not bothered, you are not stigmatized by any group if you try to follow even three identities. No problem at all, for especially for the youth. But at the same time, there are certain group we can simply criticize, and they are aware if we keep on practicing like Brexian or something like that. So we are away from our legacy, we are away from our culture, our traditions. So always it's a hazard, it's a kind of thing which is not recommended, especially for those who are in the framework of old people. People are still socialized into a variety of rules, values, and norms, but social identities no longer set certain standards of belief and behavior. Rather, individuals shape their lives through the development of personal identities that are always unique in some way, shape, or form. While an individual development or personal narrative is influenced by other, it is not indetermined by these relationships. Whereas for structuralists, sociologists, socialization control the behavior of the individual. Interactionists believe that socialization cover a range of possibilities. Every time new choices are added, the pattern of socialization change. Eventually, even tiny changes to an individual life can have a significant outcome. This explains how and why those socialized the same family in apparently very similar ways develop different adult personalities. So in this paragraph, it's all about, I mean, how different ideologies are the different approaches linked with the society. In our very, you can say, when we start this chapter, I told you there are certain rules and regulations we are bound to follow, like structuralists are interactionists. So when we talk about the structuralists, the people who simply consider a different social institutions, how they work together. And if we want to understand society, we need to understand the structure or the formulation of different institutions by skimming through the role, the skimming through the functions of the different society, different institutions, social institutions. We are able to understand the clear picture of a society. But at the same time, when we talk about the interactionists, they simply consider it's all about the individual behavior. So behavior is more important because individuals combine together to form a society. So there are two different ranges we have, like structuralist and interactionist. So when we talk about the hybrid identities, obviously hybrid identity is a new change, is a new addition in the society. So both structuralist and interactionist need to reconsider their version of how to understand society. So I mean, obviously we need to understand through a socialization. You can say this according to structures, now things are difficult to understand because it's a keep on changing. We are on a mode of changing, so keep on, societies keep on moving, so you are not able to identify which institution is playing more important part as compared to other institution. So it's important to understand structuralists emphasize, accentuate the functionality, the functions, the formulation of different social institutions like government, like family, like education, even religion. Yes, I mean, play a very important part. But with the hybrid identities, because it's always difficult to understand now which part of a society is influenced more and which institution or the social institution is playing a more important part in hybrid identities. The decentering of culture and identity means that people are increasingly open to and accepting of different experiences, both the new and in the sense of something not previously seen or done, and the newly different in the sense of changing how we relate to existing experiences. Rampton suggests that identity construction in postmodern society is something that involves assembling or piecing together a sense of identity from many changing options. Each individual creates their identity through their consumption choices and practices, something shown by the difference between shopping at a market stall in a small village and a vast mall situated on the edge of town, or the even wider range available online. The market stall presents a narrow range of goods from which to choose, as was the case with identity in the past. Shopping mall present people with the freedom to browse huge spaces filled with a wide range of consumer goods where they shop for identities. The online shopper no longer needs to go to the mall. So this is a Rampton one thing. Second thing is that it's now when we talk about the hybrid identity, we people don't folloo a rule or or the regulation. For instance, one can say that, see that I want to change my dressing, right? So it is up to me now. When you are open to everything, no, you are not going to follow any, especially the youth. They don't want to follow a specific culture, because if according to you they simply consider if we follow our culture, so we are narrow-minded people. So it's an open choice. You can take 3 to 4 different identities at the same time. This is what actually you can, I don't want to say it's the beauty of the gadgets or the beauty of consumerism. So things are open. You can't control or restrict anybody for or forcing anybody why you are changing your identity like that. So when you are changing, we are living a global village, you're open. In a community, it is possible that one group of youth have a different kind of identities. They are following different kind of 2 or 3 different merging different kinds of identities. This is what actually Rampton said. It's all about assembling. You simply pick this ABC, just compiled, and you are with a new identity. The same is the case. So I mean, you can say that when we people have this kind of process, so we got unlimited choices. So when we got unlimited choices, it means we are making different things together and having a new hybrid every single time. So this is, I mean, according to Rampant, things are different, but at the same time, there are certain things which are playing the background of your personality. For instance, the example which is given is, for instance, if I'm a new religious person, I would like to show off. If I like to show off, obviously, I would love to shop on a vast mall, and I just like to pretend in front of people that I got this and this. But at the same is the case, the person who doesn't bother, who more determined about his identity, more intellectual, doesn't have any interest in the materialistic approach. So for that kind of person, things are not that important. The person is not willing to accept the hybrid identity, right? So, changing class identities, Peel argue that recent global economic changes have resulted in blurring of traditional class identities. We can see this in culture changes in taste and consumption. In particular, joining up of the working class, middle class taste makes it increasingly difficult to define class identity clearly. Clear boundaries lines between working, middle, and upper class identities have changed dramatically, although they have not disappeared completely. So about Pele, one can say that no, globalization is actually making the whole past scenario into a new dimension. More choices, more identities. No, we can't restrict. I mean, for instance, I'm using mobile, right? So once our mobile phone is symbolically is can tell some people about our social status. Now for different classes, we can't restrict. I mean, a person who is poor, they can, by getting a lot of money, borrowing money through installment, can have the same mobile which represent an upper class. So with the passage of time, with a lot of variety, lot of choices, globalization, one can say that no choices are open, and there are certain things now which can cause in the mixing of classes. There are certain things which I have, which were the part of you can say the upper class. Now, due to the availability, due to the replica, due to mortgage, due to installment. There's so many factors which are involved. No, things are entirely changed. And so as the things are entirely changed, one can say that it's difficult to maintain different classes together. No, we are living in a mixing of different classes, but still there are again certain things which can play a part. uh, Obviously, for instance, I can buy a good mobile through installment, by taking loan, but I am not able to buy a villa or a big bungalow to represent, yes, I belong to a rich class. So there are certain things which causes the mixing of different classes, but at the same time, there are certain things which still make it possible for us to understand, I mean, who belongs to which class. Changing gender identities. Banyon argued that the contemporary global societies are experiencing a crisis of masculine identity caused by the combination of long-term unemployment, the loss of traditional male employment in manufacturing industry, lower educational achievements related to girls, the rise of female-friendly service industry. So this topic is all about the how gender identities are changing with the passage of time. The very first thing we are discussing is Bayan, who are talking about what happening to the masculine identity. There are so many factors which are affecting the masculine identity. Obviously, the loss of unemployment. I mean, obviously, you people have a long time of unemployment. You need to be at home, so obviously you have to work certain things which are actually not in your domain previously when you people are having a job. One thing. Second thing, it's all about the career orientation. Female are more determined to get something on a bigger scale. They are more keen. They are more concerned about their careers. So obviously they are getting education, getting good jobs. So obviously if they are getting good job, no, they are outside their houses just to perform. Secondly, thirdly, it's lower achievements. You can say that, especially to males as well. The rise of female-friendly services, and you can say that most of commerce, uh, customer service industries, we can simply see due to their instinctively polite attitudes. Girls are always given preference in the secretary level. You can say that it's always girls are given preference. So there are certain industries now which are beginning, which you can say that, I mean, more attractive for the girls. One thing. Second thing is that no, when we talk about the online work we're using to computer, it is open. I mean, if you have the capacity, you have the dexterity, the sagacity to work online, are making channels, YouTube channels. You can work like TikToker and so many things, options which are open, which is regardless to the gender. I mean, girls are performing more than the boys. So male identities once focused on traditional ideas. No, due to all this, you can say that the typical male dominance is, you can say, in a really danger. Uh, the economic resources on which such masculinity was based, the male identity crisis has resulted in the rise of form of the exaggerated masculinity that try to bring back traditional form of male identity. Retributive masculinities aim to get back traditional masculinity from their immasculine peers. Typical behavior includes heavy drinking, fighting, and romancing women. These behaviors are based on an idealized version of a traditional masculinity. This identity is firmly patriarchal, aggressive, both physical and verbally, oppositional in the sense of rejecting complicit masculinity, reclamation. It seeks to reclaim masculinity as an identity. So there are certain things which, I mean, the typical or the traditional masculine group is trying to re-achieve. I mean, their traditional patriarchal set of society, but obviously they try to achieve it by, you can say, by force. They are trying to inject something which was the part of the things which are associated with the patriarchy. So these type of masculinity reacting against social change can be seen, for example, in violence against women and sexual minorities. So things have changed. Girls are obviously getting more what they wanted. Second thing, it's a real, you can say, danger to the masculinity. The patriarchal system is in danger in so many developed countries. To just, you can say that, as trying to reinforce the traditional style. No one can say that there are more cases of violence, harassment, more cases of pressurizing women, uh, You can say heavy drinking is one of the part. It's kind of a frustration from from males just to get what they wanted, and what they have, in their previous life. So feminine identities are also changing as ideas about the gender equality are more accepted globally. This enables more women to move away from the conventional feminine role based on the home and family and take on new work-based identities. Some work-based identities, such as that of the domestic servant, are still strongly linked to the female role. So when we talk about the female identities, always one can say that if the masculinity is changed, obviously as a reaction, you can say that the femininity is also gaining something. So career, education, job opportunities, friendly services, uh, developed countries with more optimistic approach towards females. All these play a very important part just to give women more freedom to work. Now, the typical or the traditional role of female is challenged now. No, they are not the one in most part of developed. You can say that it's not the concept we have of the third shift. Obviously, they are not ready to play the same traditional part. So with the passage of time, again and again, it's internet, gadgets, media awareness, and opportunities are causing a lot of change in the female identities. Changing ethnic identities, globalization, and the associated movement of the people around the world mean that many societies are more ethnically mixed than in the past. Immigration, people around the globe, they are coming and to the new destinations. Culture globalization, as I mentioned earlier, whenever we talk about the globalization, it's most of the time it simply reflect the economic and the culture perspective of change. Mentioned earlier, music, rock, pop, rap, and hip hop, all now the people who are living in Saudi Arabia, a typical Islamic country or so-called Islamic country, one can say that they are still very, these kind of music are very famous, and it wasn't present, it wasn't in a decade before. Foods such as hamburger, Asian cuisine, and the German beer, language, especially slang terminologies associated with the young culture and subculture, clothing that includes jean and t-shirt. So it's all about two things you need to understand whenever we talk about the changing ethnic identities. No, when we talk about global village, we talk about globalization. Our ethnicity in is a severe danger. So music, your food, your clothing, the way you dress up, your ideas, even you smoke, you have a lot of more things to spend your leisure. All these come up under the framework of globalization. So changing age identities, the last thing, older people. For many older people in developed countries, they are a greater opportunity in later life than existed for previous generation. Pensions, better healthcare, and other development means more years of active life after retirement. Pension in particular have given older people financial power they didn't often have in the past. This spending power is known in the UK as the grey pound and has led to a range of industries and services aimed at older people. For example, some type of holidays such as cuisine are aimed mainly at the people in their age group. So, obviously, why not older people can have the more privileges? As compared to their past life, no pension play a lot of uh, important part in their later ages, especially the term which is used in this paragraph is grey pound. Obviously, no, as I keep on saying, our world has become a global village, so why not we have a consumer market for the older people as well? Now, a lot of companies, the traveling companies, they are playing their part just to give to attract the older people to spend their holidays. You have to spend a few pounds and you have a lot of fun. So this is what actually just try to attract the older people. So obviously when you got more opportunities, you have pension, more healthcare, and no, obviously you have more opportunities, then you can have a good older time. At the same time, rising life expectancy and lower birth rate means that the population of the developed countries are aging. Average age is going up, as so that older people represent a growing population of the total population. This is one of the factor. We got a late, obviously marriage is not encouraged in developed countries, one thing. Second thing, very good health facilities, again, so it means your every life is is stacking up, is rising high. More opportunities from the government, more privileges, pension in this kind of offers give older people a boost to live longer. So once they live longer, one can say that it's to some extent it's a financial burden for the societies. So it's a call for prayer. And the last article I'm going to wrap up, if you people give me just 2 minutes, take a break for a second. So young people and the children, there are few children in the most developed countries as a result of failing birth and fertility rate. As a consequence, children are highly valued and societies have become more child-centered. In developing countries, the age profile of the population is very different, but with the more children and young people in Africa. Social changes have led to the period of adolescence being extended in developed countries. In the mid 20th century, it was common for people to start full time work in the mid to late teenagers years and to marry in their early 20s. In most developed countries, the period of compulsory education has extended, while at the same time, many more young people go into the higher studies education, such as the studying for a degree at a university. This means that young people tend to be dependent on their parents for longer. So, according to this paragraph, one can say that two things you need to remember. First thing is that children, now it has become a social reality. A lot of consumerism attached to young people. One thing, children especially. When we talk about the teenagers, more in developed countries, it's a compulsion for education for young people. So if they are asked to study more and more, so it is compulsory for them to be dependent for their parents as well. So it's the last thing. In my next video, inshallah ta'ala, I will give you a whole complete review of this chapter. Till then, take care of yourself, and obviously it's a call for prayer, so have a take a break. Till then, fi amanullah.